Hello and welcome to Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters, here with my very special interview today, Mr. Barrett.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, William.
In this episode, I'm going to introduce the podcast's first permanent segment, Cool Bible Facts, and interview its host as I've introduced Mr. Barrett. This segment is all about the interesting and obscure stories and facts in the Bible. But first of all, if you don't already know Mr. Barrett, he is one of the freshman theology teachers and an overall awesome guy. How are you doing today?
Well, thanks for that introduction, William. I'm doing great. I'm really excited that there's people back at St. Ed's. It brings me a lot of energy, and I'm excited to carry that energy into the school year.
Absolutely. It's very exciting. So we're recording this on the day of freshman orientation. How did yesterday's go?
Yesterday went great. I had one class of students in the afternoon, and I imagined that they might be a little anxious or tired, but they brought some great energy to the classroom and participated, and it felt great to be back.
Yeah. So to start with the interview, how did you get into teaching?
That's a great question. Well, my mom's a teacher, my dad wanted to be a teacher, and my sister's a teacher. And beyond that, there's a cool story of education in my family involving both my grandparents. My father's father, my paternal grandfather, demanded that everybody go to school. And his line was that education is not an option. And my father would tell me that as I was growing up, that no matter what I wanted to do, he wanted me to go to college and get a degree. And on the other side, my maternal grandfather, my mother's father, left high school to support his family when his father died. So I like to think that there's this yin and yang aspect of school in my life, at least in my DNA, if you say, where the importance of school is there, and it's also paired with the importance of family.
Wow. That is a very profound story. I love it.
Yeah.
So why of all things did you decide to teach theology?
I love theology. I think I have a heart that seeks the living God, and I really discovered that at a young age and pursued it in high school. But when I got to college, the declaration of a major brought me great fear and anxiety, and I really turned inward and imagined the flow of my life and considered what I loved most, and that is the encounter of the living God in the world. And by my junior year, I fell in love with the subject. I didn't really know what the subject was my sophomore year, and I was a major at that point. But junior year was really a diving board into an ocean of exploring.
Yeah, when you caught your stride, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So besides teaching, what other connections do you have to St. Edward's?
Oh, this is a great question. Well, I went here, and I graduated from here in 2011. And I was really raised in Ed's diapers, so to speak, not literally. There's a picture of me at a beach when I was about 3 years old wearing a Property of St. Edward football t-shirt and flexing my biceps. I used that picture on my graduation card, so I like to think that I've been bleeding green and gold since I was born.
Yeah. Isn't that how a lot of families get into St. Ed's?
Exactly.
You know, it's
Yeah,
kind of a
exactly.
traditional thing. So how do you actively teach in a way that keeps your students involved and interested? Because I know, at least in my experience, your class was very involving and fun and interesting.
Thanks for that compliment. I think it's all about energy and relationships, and I think that those two go hand in hand. I like to think that my mission, prior to just exchanging knowledge and facts, is to build relationships and to move from there. And it's my hope that having relationships with each student and with the class as a whole will allow us and license us to explore things with energy that we might not have explored before.
Absolutely. So you're a really good teacher here, and I know that in March a lot of things had to change with COVID. So how have you had to adapt your teaching methods to better work around coronavirus?
That's a great question, and a couple things come to mind. First is the leadership at St. Edward High School. Mr. McKenna and Mr. Stepnowski and Mr. Kuhar reminded us that in that situation that there were more questions than there were answers. So that permitted me to really take a step back and think of this in a way that would allow me to wrestle with what's ahead of us. And then secondly, there was a great line that became really a mantra, and then is now part of a mission in the classroom, and that is to make items meaningful and manageable.
Right.
So I looked at the work that my students were doing, and I had to ask myself, what is the meaning of this? What do I want my students to get out of this? What will they remember for 2 minutes and 2 days and 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years?
It's an important aspect of school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the manageable side, I wanted to refrain from giving my students quote unquote busy work and give them things where they can wrestle with the content while handling the great unknown of COVID-19 and handling their other classes as well.
Absolutely. Now, since we're on the topic, what changes would you make to the school to better combat what's going on in the world right now?
That's a great question. I like to think that the leadership of the school has placed us in a great position to handle everything that's going on. Some changes I would make really just involve moving forward. I like to imagine that this is a day-to-day operation, and that just stresses the importance of people checking symptoms, even if they are minor symptoms that students would have powered through. I blew my nose a lot in high school, and I would walk to the teacher's desk and grab a tissue and cough and have headaches. But I think that the greatest change is not necessarily a change, but a stronger emphasis on that symptom check before you even get into the car.
Absolutely. What concerns do you have about the coming changes and the way that COVID will influence the school, and how it's going to overall affect students and teachers?
Another great question. I'm concerned about really just COVID-19 in general. I fear that it's not a matter of if, but when St. Ed's and all schools will have people that get the virus, and I'm concerned about the virus spreading, of course, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we will follow the Department of Health's recommendations and the governor's. And I like to think that our faculty meetings have equipped us to pursue this in a way that will allow for, resiliency. So if somebody has to go remote, we'll go remote. Or if we have to take a step back, if things get bad in our county, I think we can and we will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if things go well in the classroom, we'll keep riding that wave.
Yeah. How do you think St. Ed's is doing overall compared to the other schools that are combating COVID?
Well, I love that as men and women with hope to bring, we're striving to be in person to give the most meaningful learning experience and relationship experience. Again, I think that our mission and our school is founded on relationships. And I think that being in person is the best way for us to pursue that. I also think that St. Ed's has done a great job at directing traffic in the hallways, keeping desks apart, and stressing the importance of proper mask wearing.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what is your favorite sport and why?
Ooh, great question. I love baseball. I love football, and I love hockey. Yeah. Not necessarily that in order, but I think that baseball is my favorite because I really associate, as opposed to other sports, I associate profoundly with the tradition of baseball.
Right.
I love walking into a stadium and watching the players warm up. And it makes me think of the movie Field of Dreams, where we see players from the past just being humans together and getting ready to play a sport that invites spontaneity. You never know when the game can be shaken up, as opposed to football, where a team has the ball in the red zone, you're expecting a touchdown. Anything can happen within 3 outs, and there's a mystery to the game that just inspires me.
Yeah. Don't you coach freshman baseball here?
I have coached freshman baseball. I'm not sure about this year, but I loved that experience.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the other coach is Brother Dennis?
Yes.
Shout out to Brother Dennis. I hope you can make it on the podcast in one of the coming episodes.
Yeah, Brother Dennis was my freshman baseball coach in 2008.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your favorite professional Cleveland sports team?
Ooh, I like to think that I bleed brown and orange.
Yeah.
But
Browns.
I bleed brown and orange because I've been hurt by the brown and orange so many times. For example, this past Sunday, I think, one of the few people in Cleveland thinking that we'd go to Baltimore and pick up a win. I expect the team to win every game. I'm an eternal optimist. So the pain that comes along with the Browns makes me have to say that the Indians are my favorite Cleveland sports team.
Yeah. I play fantasy football, and I picked up this is just me for you. I picked up Odell, Landry, and Chubb, and they lost the last match for me.
Oh, they laid a combined egg.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Jarvis, I don't think Jarvis had one drop.
No.
I'm hopeful that OBJ and Baker can spark a relationship on the field.
Yeah. So how have you kept yourself busy this summer throughout quarantine?
I read a lot. I picked up The Lord of the Rings, and I'm reading that for the first time. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X right around when our country was really ignited by scars. A lot of people became aware of the scars that people still carry from the past. So I don't think that our quote-unquote revolution in a way is a new thing, but something that we're returning to and seeing with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
I also bought a PS4.
That's
so
good.
I felt kind of like a high school student. I would do my work and then relax and go to the gaming system.
Yeah. Have you seen the new release for the Xbox Series X and PS5?
I haven't, no. I'm trying to avoid it because I bought a PS4 so close to that release date. So
they look so weird. One looks like a Wi-Fi router, and the other looks like a refrigerator. I'm not sure what the design team was thinking on that.
Yeah, put those two together, and you've got an accessible Wi-Fi capacity fridge.
Yeah.
Oh, I also got puppies. My family got puppies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Black Lab and a Chocolate Lab, Joy and Cece, and they bring me so much joy. Joy brings me joy. I'll say that.
Yesterday, I don't know why, but my stepfather impulsively bought 2 turtles.
Oh, nice.
Surprise. We didn't plan it. It wasn't even something we talked about before going. We went to this fish store called Bluefish. Shout out to Bluefish and Will that owns it. You guys are awesome. They take great care of their animals there. And what we did was we went to Bluefish, and we were going to get... we have a saltwater tank.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this fish called a mandarin goby now. That's what we went to go get there. Beautifully colored. But we went there, and for some reason he bought 2 turtles. They're named Cup and Cake. My little sister named them.
I like the thinking there.
Yeah, and now they're just in our living room.
In a cage, right? Or in a glass
we
container.
just got a temporary enclosure for them. We're going to build a bigger one, but it's just surprising.
That's awesome, man. Do they know martial arts, or do they like pizza?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they know martial arts or pizza.
Oh, we'll wait and see when they're teenagers.
Yes, we will. So I've got a story for you.
Let's hear it.
Do you remember last year, right, when we were talking about the stereotype of God being an old white man in the clouds?
Yes.
And we went around the room and we discussed our vision of God.
Yes.
Gardier had always imagined him as an older black grandpa. One of the students simply imagined him as Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then it got around to me, and I said that I had always imagined God as a giant squid in the cloud.
I was going to say an octopus. Giant squid, though.
Giant squid.
Let's hear it.
So my point is that everyone has a different view of God. That being said, how do you imagine God?
Wow, that's a great question. I imagine God, and this imagination of God has changed and been reshaped over time. But through college, I pictured God as an old white man in the sky. And I love what Thomas Aquinas says. Sorry if I'm wrong, theology department. But God is not a being, but rather being itself. So I look around the podcast room that we're in, and I know that God is here. Maybe not with hands and feet. In spirit, yes, but something even more than spirit. A real presence of God is here. So I love the metaphor of God as an ocean that we're called to dive deeper and deeper into. And while we're swimming, you might ask, where's the water?
Right.
Everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere.
That's a very profound ideal of God.
Hey, and I'm sure it will find more shape as I grow older.
Absolutely. Do you have any cool Bible facts for us today? I know it's kind of on the fly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I actually just wrote my course syllabus a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited about the introduction. The opening lines of the class say that although the Bible is bound under one book, it's in fact a collection of, in the Catholic Church, 73 books, with not just 73 authors, but in some cases multiple authors for each book. And I love to think that each book of the Bible, in its own way, is this exhortation of a community's experience in the world and how they wrestle and continue to wrestle with the encounter of God that's around them.
Yeah. Wow, that was a good, cool Bible fact.
Yeah.
In the future, we're going to have this segment on permanently. Mr. Barrett will be bringing on interesting stories from the Bible that you've probably never heard before.
Yeah.
This will be on either every episode or every other episode, so I'll keep you guys posted. This was Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters. Thanks for coming on, Mr. Barrett.
Thanks for having me, William. I've been told that I've got a face for radio, so I'm excited to continue this.
Oh, yeah. Up next, we'll have an interview with Mr. Kuhar. We'll be right back. Now. Hello and welcome back. For this next interview, I have on Mr. Kuhar. Mr. Kuhar has helped me record and produce the podcast so far. How are you doing today, Mr. Kuhar?
Pretty great. How are you doing, Will?
I'm doing good. So, Mr. Kuhar, what is your position at St. Ed's, and what does it entail?
Yeah, so I am an Associate Dean of Academics and the IB Coordinator. And so there's really like 4 or 5 kind of hats you wear in that sort of job, but my main thing that I focus on is, the 2 things I really focus on is that the students and the teachers alike are really enjoying the learning that they're getting into, and that when they need support or they have an idea for something they want to do that's like exciting and new, that they've got the resources they need to do that.
Kind of like the podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, Lawrence just like passed us in the hall, and he was asking about Sneakerheads Club. Like, I'm still trying to get like sewing machines are kind of in short supply right now because everyone was making masks at the beginning of COVID.
Right.
So I'm trying to get an industrial sewing machine for that's strong enough to get through the leather to like let us sew the shoes.
Huh.
So like stuff like that. That's like more extracurricular or co-curricular because it's all design process stuff. But like Mr. Froelich reached out to me just like an hour ago, and he needed some old student work to like show the new students what a really good design tech internal assessment could look like. And then sometimes, like Miss Dennisted, she does public speaking, and one of the ways we wanted to modernize that class was teach students how to produce podcasts in the class. So that's a big part of what I do. And then I still teach 2 sections of English here.
Wow.
And really anything Miss Munnell or Miss Warner need for film, because Miss Munnell's taking over chairship of film. Anything they need as they continue to turn that program into what they want and a reflection of themselves. Like I'm just kind of there to like give them whatever resources they need.
Yeah, busy guy. What's your favorite shoe that you've made so far in Sneakerheads?
We haven't done a ton because just as we were really getting cooking, that's when COVID hit. Because we went out to the leather store and bought a bunch of stuff. But we bought a bunch of really, really nice red leather, and the back of it's red suede. So we're going to make some like red carpet shoes. I wanted to auction them off for like prom.
That's a great idea.
I thought it would be really sweet. So we have a lot of patterns cut. But because we don't have access to the sewing machine yet, and COVID hit, we're just about to get back into that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like the process happened with the podcast.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Exactly.
So what is the International Baccalaureate program?
So there's a long storied history to IB, but what it really is, it's on the edges or like the frontier of where education is and where it's going to be. I keep telling parents, I graduated high school in 2003. When I came back to teach for the first time in 2008 at another Catholic school, it had already changed so much. And then then I went to grad school for a couple of years, and I came to Eds in 2010. By then, it was almost like my experience of high school is almost unrecognizable from the high school I was being asked to teach, and I had to change my thinking so much and learn on the fly so much. And it just goes to kind of show you, education transforms and leapfrogs kind of like technology does. You look at like 20 years ago, you couldn't hold a podcast like this in a little card. You need like some huge storage to do that. Now we have this like card that's the size of your like nail on your pinky, this like mini SD card, and education just changes so quickly. I think what IB does is they continually revamp and reimagine the best version of all their courses, everything from like literature to design tech to French to computer science and film, and they every 5 years they kind of revamp all the classes. And so you always get like, what's the cutting edge of education? And so the learning feels like the real world. It doesn't feel like something that's a little bit stuffy or dated. It's exciting and new and really relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know, like, my music taste, for example, is stuck in the 60s. So, like, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. And, like, I just have this huge stack of records at home. And it's just interesting to see how that has developed. Speaking of music taste, what's yours?
Oh, man. What am I listening to right now? I actually have a record player in my classroom. What did I have in there today? I had Father John Misty in there today. He's pretty solid. I've been listening a lot to Hayley Williams. She put out a solo album. She's the lead singer from Paramore, and I was never really into Paramore, but her solo work was recommended to me. That album's great. God, what else do I have out on home a lot? There's a great band I found last summer called Tape Waves. They're from the South, super dreamy. Like I could have that record on all day. I had a band. I was one of the bands I played in. We toured with them for like a week. And so like I got to watch them perform every night, and like usually when that happens, like if you're in marching band and you're playing the same songs or you're hearing the same stuff over and over again, after a while it drives you a little bit crazy. But I could listen to that band's music every day. It's just great. Yeah,
that's cool. So how did you get into your line of work, teaching and administrative work?
I had a teacher. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had like a little group of friends around junior year of high school, and college is around the corner, and with that, like if you're going to pick a college, you kind of have to have in mind like, what do I want to do after college too? And I just so happened to have like a couple of teachers junior year of high school that just blew me away. Like I didn't have a great experience in high school in my first 2 years, and then junior and senior year were just like almost every teacher I had was mind-blowingly good and engaging. And I was like, man, this looks like a really cool job. Like I didn't know teaching could be this kind of exciting. And so since I was 16, I kind of had a pretty clear idea that was what I wanted to do. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Ignatius. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's a little ironic.
Yeah.
So how have you been occupying yourself throughout quarantine?
There was so much going on with work, especially because I'm the IB coordinator. It was the first time there was no exams for IB, and so there was so much that changed in terms of like what student work needed to like go into the IB. So it was really, really busy. And once it settled down, like in terms of the school year for the summer, then I was here like really all the time. I spent a lot of time here with Mr. McKenna, Mr. Stepp, Mr. Kubaki, and the whole like leadership team, just figuring out how can we come back to school in a way that keeps everyone absolutely as safe as possible, but is also gonna get us back to the community that everyone loves and the experiences that everyone loves. So really devoted a lot of time both at work and at home, just figuring out with all these great minds in the community, like how are we going to get this to work.
Yeah, props to you guys. The whole system so far has been fantastic.
Oh, good. How's your first like kind of half week of school been?
It's been good. It's been different. So like in freshman year I took 0 honors classes and now I'm taking 6. So it's definitely different both in the people around me and the teachers. Um I've really enjoyed Spanish so far.
Oh, great.
Miss Quinn has made it very fun and engaging. Although I've really enjoyed all of my classes, you
Great.
know, it's a different atmosphere. It's really fun and enjoyable, you know, a little more challenging. Um, so how have the new COVID procedures affected your many involvements around the school, such as the IB and film classes?
You know, right now we're still like dipping a toe into that, but like really, like I mean, the English class that I'm teaching, it's not dramatically different than an English class I would have taught prior to COVID. You know,
Yeah.
like obviously the masks are a huge thing. We're being really careful to, you know, seminar is tougher. It's a lot tougher to do that. So we got some strategies for getting around like talking in the classroom. But other than that, it's just awesome because it's just so much more joyful to do this job here in a room with everyone rather than across screens. First week, we're just trying to get people into a flow with like how the hallway one-way traffic works and how coming into the school with the temperature checks work. But I've been really pleased with how seamless everything has been.
Yeah.
You know, it's just been such a tough 6 months. You just figure it's like at some point you just keep bearing down, waiting for tough things to keep happening, and it's like, hey, this is actually working pretty well. It's almost like going too easy, or almost everything's too easy and everything's going too smoothly, which makes my spidey sense go up. But yeah, no, it's a lot of like practical, like little things, like, you know, how do you get people to and from the place? How do you get people in the building safely? But that's all been good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel at this point kids just don't want to do that again. They don't like it's a big incentive for them to actually be in the school.
I totally agree.
Especially with friends at other schools who don't have this amazing opportunity, you know?
Absolutely. And you know what? If we were out for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, it might have been a lot harder to come back.
Yeah.
And have the masks. It was almost like, you know, this being taken away from us for that period of time completely like rewired how much you appreciate it in your brain.
Absolutely, you know? So, like, if you had total control over everything, right, you know? And it might be a unrealistic question, but what would you do to better combat COVID at St. Ed's?
I think it's a good sign that I'm really scratching my head to think of something right off the top of my head. I think to combat COVID,
Yeah.
like to make the campus safer.
To make the campus a safer place, to make everyone more laid back, just to make the whole. I mean, the experience has been incredible so far, much better than I thought it would be. But, like, to make it even better, you know?
I don't know. I think time will tell on that. Can't say for right now. I think that's a really good sign that I'm really scratching my head about.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you have many hobbies and stuff. Do you enjoy watching sports at all?
Yeah. I'm obsessed with the NBA bubble, and
Yes.
I've watched almost every single playoff game. That's been like
Oh,
a
that's
huge,
fantastic.
huge kind of like, you know, we're not in quarantine anymore. It's not what it was in April, but, you know, my wife and I have a 2-year-old, and he doesn't like having a mask on, so
That's fair.
when we're with him, he's got a little Elmo mask, and he rips it off about 30 seconds into anytime we try to put it on him. So we're still kind of limited with where we go and what we do. And so one thing that's been great, it's like, well, if we're going to kind of be stuck inside, like I love basketball. I'm a huge LeBron fan too. I got my 15s on right now.
Yeah.
And it's just been great. And it's not just like the Lakers and that whole story. It's like literally every team has just been amazing. The Nuggets with the upset on
Oh
the
my
Clippers
gosh,
was
yeah,
fantastic.
that was awesome.
I love the Heat. I love this Heat team so much. I like the Celtics too. Like, and I kind of want a Lakers-Celtics matchup.
Yes.
But at this point, Jimmy Butler's been leading that crew so well. I'm starting to think about, like a Lakers Heat matchup would be pretty awesome too. Yeah. So that I'm not really a huge video game guy. I got the new Avengers, but I kind of like I binged on that one day and I haven't gotten back to it. I was playing some shows with the band. We were able to do some like socially distanced, safe concerts. We did one at the Rock Hall outside. And that was actually kind of fun. It was like really tricky to pull off, but it was like a little puzzle to solve, so that was pretty cool. And that band, they're looking to record some music soon, which you can do remotely, you know. So I'm like getting a little bit of a studio set up in my basement going. So
That's cool. So
Yeah.
you have a band. You're in a band.
yeah, I played with a couple of bands. The one I'm playing with right now is fronted by a woman. She actually contributed the soundtrack to one of our short docs, and so like I do percussion for her.
So one of the soundtracks. So the red button here that I used for.
Oh no, in the documentaries for the film department.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of sports, I know we have to go back to that, but
Mhm.
what's your favorite professional Cleveland sports team?
Oh, the Cavs by far.
Yeah.
The Browns I can't even watch anymore.
Oh, it's painful.
Just because like my dad we were a Browns family growing up, and when you're that young and you watch your team get, just never make it to the Super Bowl,
Battered over
and
over.
then leave and then get battered
Yeah,
for 20
that's
years and they
rough.
come back. The Browns are just kind of, I had to like put that childhood thing to bed. And the Indians too. I mean, like
That was disappointing.
my brothers and I were humongous Indians fans when we were in grade school. You know, they had the run in like '95 and in '97 against the
16.
Marlins,
too.
and like I've never really bounced back from that, from them losing those World Series. So, but the Cavs are my jam.
Yeah. I mean, the Browns' future is kind of looking up. We've got Nick Chubb. We've got Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield. If they can start to connect, I feel like they'll not make it far in the playoffs, but make the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Cavs are at the bottom of the barrel for the NBA right now, but
Sure,
like
but it's the
I would
Cavs.
give pretty much anything to just go to like a normal NBA game right now.
Yeah. I know, like, maybe 2 weeks before COVID hit, like a week before we recorded the first episode, I went to a Cavs game, I think against the Mavericks.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was there.
You were there?
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got tickets to go see Luca.
Yeah, I enjoyed that game. I love it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, why of all schools did you decide to come to St. Edward's, the rival of your alma mater?
Yeah. I mean, like, first off, it was like practically speaking, I don't think Ignatius. They either weren't hiring that year, or they weren't, or I didn't get a call. But so I finished grad school right after the economic collapse.
Right. Okay.
I put out 65 job applications, and for everywhere, like for advertising, American Greetings, like being an online grader for like PSATs, like anything you can imagine related to. I got my master's in English literature and writing, in creative writing, and like anything related to writing or reading, like I put in an application for. And out of 65 applications, I got 3 callbacks, and the 3 ended up being schools. So I was like, okay, I taught high school for a year, and then I taught college for 2 years while I was getting my degree, and I was kind of thinking about like leaving to try something else. But when I only got teaching callbacks, I was like, okay, like maybe there's something to this. And I don't know. I got into this place. It was the year they were introducing IB, and I swear I just like as I was walking down the main hall to go to my interview. It was very much a spidey sense intuition thing. I just got a feeling like something really positive was happening in this environment. Like there's just a weird but really good energy I couldn't put my finger on. And then in the interview, it was like Mr. Stepnowski. He was in the English department. Mr. Allen, Mr. Urban was an English teacher then. He's back in English now. And I just saw these super smart, interesting people talking to me across the interview table, and I was like, man, this like seems like a really cool department. Even though I didn't know anything much else about the school. And so I had actually had an offer before I came for the interview here. Like I had a contract for another school, and same thing. I got the spidey sense to like, this is guaranteed. I could just go for this. Like, why go in for the other interview? And I had a bad feeling about that contract, and I was like, no, I'm gonna like go for this interview and like see what Eds is about. And then I just held out. I was just like, man, I just hope like I get the job at Eds, and I don't, and, I had a fallback, but I just really wanted the job here, and that was that. I do remember walking the halls, and there was like a banner, like a vinyl banner that had, I think it was Basil Moreau, and it said at the bottom of it, like, the heart won't be educated at the expense of the mind. And like,
I love that quote.
I love
That's
that
the great
quote. That was like literally the first like piece of art I noticed when I was walking through the building to get to the room I was interviewed in, and like that hit me really hard, and I like loved that. That was so pronounced at the school. Yeah, so it was that. Yeah, and really like first impressions really are everything.
Absolutely.
And that interview was just like a fun interview. Like it obviously like you're anxious and like nervous in an interview, and there's like it was me on one side of the table and I think like 5 or 6 people on the other side. So there's that. But I just like once I had one conversation, I was like, man, I want to go back and like get to know those people. So that was that.
Yeah. Honestly, when I was applying to Eds, I thought that there was no way in HE double hockey sticks that I would ever make it into this school. Honestly, I always got straight A's, but I was homeschooled, I taught myself my entire life. I never thought that I would get into a place like this. I thought, I'll try it. Like, honestly, my mom can tell you about this conversation. I talked to her. I said, I'll try it. I'll go for it. And if they say yes, that's awesome. But, like, if not, it's not the worst thing to stay at home. I now realize it was the worst thing to stay at home.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my mom
That's
did a
so
great
funny.
job and all, but, like, this is different. This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I know that month for the application was, like, the most nerve-wracking month of my entire life, So, I am so thankful, and this is a great place to be,
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so going into the second week of school, what is your message for students?
I think, stay safe. Just for, be good servant leaders, and be kind to one another by kind of minding all of our guidelines and all the things we have in place to keep people healthy and safe. And I think, too, like, enjoy it, man. Soak it up. Like, this is a special place, and you only get to be here for 4 years unless you're a teacher. And don't take, not a moralizing, don't take it for granted, but if you can ask yourself the question at the end of every day, like, my buddy used to have this thing. He used to ask, his dad used to ask him at the end of every like school day when they were eating dinner, and it was like, when did you feel? It was something like, when did you feel most cared for in the day, or like, when did you feel happiest today? And like, I think Eds is a place where it's going to be the classrooms. As much as people love their sports and their extracurriculars, like, try to do some reflection every day. We're coming back with this new spirit, new appreciation, but we're humans, and it's easy to get a couple weeks into a groove and like forget that like initial like really really awesome hunger and energy that we're coming in with now. And so if we can be a little bit reflective this year and keep that front of mind, and keep up this gratitude and energy we got now all throughout the year, I think it's going to be like one of the best years we've ever had.
Yeah, for sure. Especially after a very chaotic 1920 year. I mean, like, that was a crazy year. I know I came in as a freshman, but like, was that normal?
Yeah, it was just one after another. Like, the challenges were coming and coming and coming. And I mean, I remember getting the announcement over the PA. I think it was that Thursday or Friday we went out, and I felt pretty sure it was going to be 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Like, worst case scenario, we'll finish the quarter remote and come back. I never would have thought we would have been out the rest of the school year.
I know Mr. McKenna definitely, like, I remember talking to him, and he was like, oh, yeah, we'll be back in a month, you know? But, like, here we are 6 months later in the world of coronavirus, you know? I know for me, this is definitely the most enjoyable part of St. Ed's.
Great.
Maybe theology class or chemistry.
Yeah.
But, like, I love this. This is
Love
awesome.
doing podcasts. That's great. It's a great way to build relationships, to get to know people a little bit more.
For sure.
You get to like some skills with the gear, with like editing and stuff.
Yeah, I had
so.
no idea how to do this.
Yeah, so that's great. And I think like, but the thing you said before about being homeschooled, like you just taught yourself, like in some way, like that's like a thing I hope you don't lose here too, because I think a lot of you're gonna have a lot of opportunities to be like, hey, I've never tried this, and like people are gonna encourage you to take a risk and support you, and like put a couple toes in the water of something that's unfamiliar. And like I think that's one of the best things about this school is not that we're unafraid and fearless. It's that like everyone here that you admire is scared too when they're trying something new, but they have people encouraging them and telling them like, yeah, you could, if you're interested in that, go for it, like see if you like it. And that's a huge thing that just keeps this place feeling like really alive.
Yeah. I know for me, the moment like that happened for me was, I don't know if you guys remember this. I do. There was like an interview thing that happened. My friend Gardier was one of the people that got suspended. Certain comments that were said over like a student, not even St. Ed's related, but it happened on campus, so I get it. Interview system, I guess. And then Gardier said, you know, you should do something like that, but school appropriate. And I was like, maybe I should. And he was my co-host up until he transferred. And then I know you have supported me and helped me through all of this, and thank you very much for that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. So thank you again for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a fun time.
I did.
Yeah, awesome. This has been Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters, signing off with a quick statement. We're going to be changing the structure of the podcast just a tad bit going into this year. So far I've had like 1 or 2 interviews per episode, and starting with the next episode, we're going to have one reoccurring segment. I mentioned it earlier in this one with Mr. Barrett called Cool Bible Facts. And then we're going to have an interview. And I'm going to toy with the idea of putting in a few extra segments if you guys like it. So give me some feedback and definitely tell me what length of the podcast you like. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavan-Masters, signing off for real this time. Now